I think let's jump to try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view, because I think this is one of the core ideas of the book, and I think we should really like hit this for a second. Um, and so just think about like this can be applied to like every aspect of what you're trying to do. Trying to see the other person's point of view is going to be so helpful in every way. If you're having an argument, if you are just trying to get someone to do something for you, if you're just trying to be someone's friend, understanding their motives and understanding why they do what they do is going to allow you to take steps, actions, say things that's going to help you achieve your goals and their goals as well.
That's and this you got to understand that it's something I'm really starting to pay attention to is people don't actually care about the other person's like genuine like there's some people you do care about and like you really sit down and listen, but majority of the time, let me not say people don't care. Let me say as all of us as humans collectively, most of the times the other person we're talking to, we don't really care about like what their opinion is of something, or we don't really care about like what point of view they have of it. We have a certain motive and objective that the reason why we're talking to them is to accomplish that. And so whatever information is required of us to either pick up from them in order to achieve that motive, that objective, is what we're going to pay attention to, right? So most of the times you can tell this when you're talking to someone that's trying to sell you something, right? Like they're trying to sell you something and you're telling them, they're asking you all these different questions, but you can tell that they're really not listening. You can tell that they're just kind of like waiting. They're waiting to hear that one thing that's going to like so they can attach on and to like try to sell and drive you on that one point, right?
No,
And so in this point, like Dale saying, like if you show that you are like you genuinely want to hear that other person's point of view, like you genuinely are hearing every single aspect of their point, they're gonna become, again, like we mentioned, more vulnerable. They're gonna soften up and they're gonna let their guards down, and that's when you can actually be able to open up their mind, be able to change their mind, because you've allowed them to think that. Not think, but you've actually created an environment that lets them know that this other person actually cares about what I have to say. This other person is interested in what I have to say. They will take what I say with they'll actually take what I don't want to say with a grain of salt, but they will take what I say seriously. And so therefore they're going to be more willing to take what you say seriously, because once you feed into our own selfish needs, wanting our own selfish needs of wanting to have our opinions be heard, be first, then the other person's like, well, I'm gonna be willing to do that since they get that from me. That's most people. And so this point is like really huge in that aspect. Like you view it that way, it starts to really make a lot of sense.
And that kind of links exactly. Mel didn't use the exact words, but what he was saying from last episode was listening to the other person and understanding how they feel. It really makes them feel valued and important, which was one of the fundamental principles we talked about last episode, or in the last episode we recorded for how to win friends and influence people. And because people, like you said, need to have that need filled of being important, once they have that filled, they really appreciate you for filling that need and understanding them and taking the time to really get to know them and understand why you do what you want, like what you do, and trying to help you. And that will allow you, again, or I feel like I switched the pronouns there. I feel like but I think you know what I'm trying to say in terms of like, if you understand someone else, they will really appreciate your efforts and they will return the favor.
You, 100%. And another last one before we move on to the second part about being a leader, is let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. And I'll quickly hit on this, and then you can put your 2 cents on it as well. But this is super important because like, how many times have you felt motivated to do something for like someone else, right? It's this whole idea that we're in this generation that's like, we don't want to work to build someone else's, goals or dreams. We don't want to work for someone else. We don't want to be bossed around by someone else, right? It kind of fits in this whole idea, and the idea that if you let someone else think that the idea you're having is theirs, they're more likely going to be inclined to do it because it comes from them. They're going to feel like, oh, this is something I thought about. We take a lot of pride into things that we put the word my in front of. Right. Anything we put my in front of, there's a bit more pride. And I think you had a really good example about kind of like how this podcast started.
No, so this is kind of funny. The way this podcast started, Mel's actually really good at this in general, but one of the things that he did when we started the podcast was we had talked about, let's start a podcast, and I wanted it to be a new podcast. Like, it was just Mel and I starting a brand new thing, and he mentioned it a few times with equipment and stuff. He was like, oh yeah, I have equipment because I have my old podcast, Adapt or Die, And then I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And after he kept dropping that, he name dropped it a few times and said like, you know, like whatever. And then one day I was like, Mel, why don't we just use your old podcast? Like, why do we need to like make a new one? And he was like yeah, like why? That's what I was thinking too. And then later I realized I was like, wait. He probably just told me that so I would think the same thing and ask him instead of him asking me. And I was like, that's so like he big brain, like he slow played me in a good way. Like it wasn't like I realized it and I was like, well, I mean, I still wanted to do it, so it's fine. But it was like it was an idea that like he hit me with, and I was like, dang, like
Look,
that was kind of smart. He got me. Like,
I didn't even read the book at that point, so imagine the things that could have been done. But yeah, it wasn't malicious at all. But that just shows you like once you get that idea of it, like how much more invested do you feel like you are now? Well, how invested do you feel like you were when you had that idea compared to if I said like, nah, just do it my podcast?
But yeah, if you were like, just do my podcast, I'd be like, I don't really want to do that. But if I'm like, let's do yours podcast, then it's like, yeah, like it feels like it's my idea. It's like I want to do it for us. It's not like you're doing it for you. It's like we're doing it for
each
us.
other. Exactly. Yeah. And we're just gonna hit on the last points on here, and I'll just quickly rant them out, and you take us to the next segment. But so appeal to the nobler motives. So that just means like appeal to the better side. And if a lot of I guess criminals, they'll do a lot of like bad things, but they have like a nobler motive in their mind. That they're like, oh, I was doing this to save this. I was doing this to help my family. So if you're able to appeal to people's nobler motives, more likely to want to think the way you think, or you can change their mind.
Right.
Dramatize your ideas. Be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. Begin in a friendly way. Let the other person do a great deal of talking. Get the other person to say yes immediately. So again, this yes part goes with the idea of soften them up. So if you can get them to say yes about certain things, like little things that lead up to your bigger question, then you're more likely to be successful in that last question. And then throw down a challenge, because who doesn't like a good old challenge?
Exactly.